So imagine this, you are going to a party, a regular party. You do your preparations by making sure that you have, for example, nice clothes. During the party, you enjoy the food and you enjoy all the nice drinks. And after the party, you feel like, yeah, or you feel hungover. But one way or another, you do some preparation. One way or another, you do some preparation for the party. When you are planning or going to a Chemsex party, you have to think about completely different things. And for example, before the party, hang out a flag. But that is not the most important. The most important is that you prepare yourself for a time with drugs and sex. So one easy example is, you know probably if you join Chemsex parties that you will not drink and eat enough. So drinking and eating beforehand, like a good meal, pasta, protein and a lot of water might help and might be harm reducing for your Chemsex party. But then you're at the party. Yeah, this is the party. This is the party we're going to. And there are also women there, but they are in the back. They were too shy. During the party, you also can do a lot of things to reduce risks. For example, make sure that you use enough lube when you have sex. And then, of course, you will all advise everybody to use condoms as well. And that is a nice one in interventions, because in Chemsex parties, a lot of people do not want to use condoms. So if you're talking to Chemsex participants who tell you that they don't want to use condoms, how can you make sure that their sexual behavior is as safe as possible? And then after the party, you might feel hungover. And then you also can do things to make sure that you feel as good as possible, and we have some harm reduction interventions for that as well. For example, if somebody asks, what should I do to make sure that I feel not that bad after the party, you can give an advice. For example, try to go outside and get as much fresh air as possible. So now I'm going to invite you to think about pre-party, during party and post-party interventions. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to give you either number 1 or 2.
Thank you, team before the party. Thank you, thank you. These are excellent, and quite some of these focus in our intervention package as well for pre-party, which we're going to give to you in after the break. But, you know, I wanted to ask you, just as a team, some questions about some of the things that came up in the pre-party interventions. My question for you is, if a client asks questions about combining substances and which substances to combine, is it better for clients to combine stimulants, 2 different types of stimulants, 2 different types of depressants, or a stimulant and a depressant? Before we answer, polydrug use is not safe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not, but our clients are going to do it anyway if that's what they prefer. What is the safest option? Come on. We, when speaking to our clients who participate in Chemsex, it's really important that we don't alienate them and we listen to what they say. If a client tells you that they really like polydrug use and they are going to continue whatever happens because that's what they do, it might not be the best to just tell them you've got to stop. The principles, one of the basic pillars of harm reduction is non-moralizing, non-judgmental behavior, and therefore having to work with people who might be unwilling or unable to reduce their substance use. So our interventions here are working with people, not against them, and giving them solutions to maintain their health while allowing them to continue the thing that they do because they feel as though it's good for them.
I'll go back to the first example. The first thing you have in mind is, I am going to drink as much as possible. Then somebody comes up to you and says, you shouldn't drink that much because it is not good for you. If you do that, you do not apply harm reduction, but you have a certain opinion about the fact that somebody is drinking. What would help for harm reduction is if you tell somebody, that's nice, or you don't even have to say that's nice. If you drink a glass of wine, make sure that you also drink a glass of water. But probably nobody will tell you not to drink that much, because drinks is widely accepted and everybody will probably say to you, have fun, enjoy. Now you are all Chemsex specialists and outreach workers. When I come to you because I want to do a Chemsex party, if you tell me do not use many drugs or reduce it, then I'm like, no, I want to have this party. And the fact that you are giving advice on harm reduction during Chemsex parties does not mean that you are promoting the use of drugs. It just means that you have the knowledge and that you can make sure that when people go to a Chemsex party, at least you can try to reduce some risks. Of course, I heard a lot of very nice harm reduction interventions, and I know it's obvious to talk about lube and condoms, and for example, maybe wristbands. For that could be a good one for people who inject, or for people who keep track for, okay, if you wear red, then you have used this type of drug, like that. Yeah, absolutely, you are absolutely thinking in the right way, but again, if I were going to a Chemsex party, don't tell me that I cannot have fun.
All right. Then that leaves us with one more group. And you know who you are. After party interventions, please. Wow, the post-party interventions were fantastic. Round of applause one more time. And I know I'm talking too much and Chef is angry at me because he had more. But I just want to focus on a couple of things that came up here in the post-party interventions as well. Okay, so one thing that I noticed and I think is really important to mention is we spoke about keeping our genitals clean, which is really good advice. But this is good advice, but we can build on that advice as well. Usually, remember, Chemsex sessions can last for many, many hours and sometimes even days. And therefore, and also within those sessions, there can be some pretty hardcore, rough sex. For people who have had their sexual organs being treated very roughly, some might feel pain and others might not. But it's important to advise people to, as well as being clean, to be gentle. The skin around these areas are usually quite thin and extremely sensitive. So, and even if pain isn't felt, it's likely that there is some skin open here and there, and therefore that area can be very easily aggravated. If it's aggravated, it's very open to bacterial infection. So clean and gentle. One more I noticed and I heard is that you were advising about drinking. This is good advice. It's important to drink to rehydrate our bodies, our skin, but to also start to increase our dopamine levels again. But drinking is often the last thing. Doesn't matter if it's hot milk, warm water, it's the sweet, dry, sour, it doesn't matter. It's the last thing that somebody will want to do after using a lot of methamphetamine. So, but what you often find with drinking is that a little bit leads to a lot more. So what I loved was to have a shower intervention. And what we could do to be smart is to combine those interventions. Have a shower, and then when you're in the shower, just let a little bit of the water drip into your mouth.
Thinking and writing down all the different interventions you can think of in the for the post, during and pre-party stage. And for easy reference, I have a small document for you, translated into Vietnamese, to give you an idea of how to implement pre-party interventions. And what is the nice thing about this one is that many of those things you already mentioned in your list as well. And this is actually a bit of a combination of the planning and also during the party. But in the planning, for example, make sure for what is a good one is to have a party and play form. I explained that. What I like about that is it's a form in which you can keep track of everybody who is at your party, and then you can make notes who took which drug when. And then you can keep sort of track for yourself as well what you used, and that is a very nice harm reduction intervention. And a few other things are, for example, make sure that there is plenty of water and soft drinks or sport drinks. A chill out corner can be nice for when you're in the party and suddenly you're overwhelmed, that you have a place where you just can retreat for a bit. So for you maybe to use in your work when people ask about what can I do to reduce the risks as much as possible before the party. If we switch to during party, then clients come to you and need to know or ask you what kind of advice can you give me. You already mentioned some, for example, talk about sexual activities and consent. And another tip and trick or advice is make sure that you know what you use. So that when you use something, that you're not just taking anything, but that you first try a bit maybe if you do not exactly know what it is. And as a bonus, I also put in what you might need during a party. For example, equipment, like medication, lube, condoms, phone charger, hydration supplements, something for mouth hygiene. And you mentioned quite a few of them as well. So this is what you can advise to your clients if they say, what should I put in a toolkit, for example. And of course, we have the after party. You can talk to your clients about what they can expect after a shorter or longer Chemsex party. And one of the things is that you can expect a crash. It doesn't have to be, but you can expect it. And that is, for example, depression, feeling moody. And next to that also the fact that you are physically exhausted, cannot sleep, and that can even happen days after, because when you quit the party, then you are maybe still on a high. So it can take some time before you get into that low feeling. This is all advice which you can give to your clients. And you can tell them to take time, that their mood can change, eat, drink and sleep. I have heard that before today. Exercise, but also check in, for example, with an outreach worker, with a friend, with your network.
And actually, the support sessions are something that we mentioned again and again throughout, and they are a very good tool. And for people who can't participate in Chemsex, it can be used in different ways. So as you said, people who, we might put a session on for people who have just finished a party a few days ago.
Yeah, and that is what I'm going to do now, because I think when we started on Wednesday, I said, we are not here to tell you how to work with your clients. We are here to share what we do and to focus on similarities.